Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report here with a very important update. Before I get to Q Post 3858 and the Great Awakening, we know now what truly terrifies the deep state, the Democrats, and the enemies of humanity, and that is the Great Awakening. But before we get there, I want to start with this. President Trump is cleaning house at the National Security Council after the Vindmans were let out of the White House and fired. The National Security Advisor is saying that significant cuts are underway at the National Security Council, with 70 positions expected to be cut, and those are pretty much all Obama holdovers. It takes time to clean out the deep state, and this president is doing his level best at doing just that. Meanwhile, the Democrat Party is blowing itself up, and if you'd like to see what the establishment wants, what the Rothschilds want, look no further than this ridiculous graphic from The Economist. Joe Biden's once comfortable lead has shrunk, they say, and Bernie Sanders looks poised to overtake the former vice president. Newsflash, Economist, it's already happened. Bernie Sanders is obviously the frontrunner. The Democrat Party doesn't like it, and neither do the Rothschilds. Clearly, Joe Biden is the bought and paid for pick of the Zionist Rothschild economist enterprise. But regardless of who the establishment or the dingy Democrats bring to the forefront as their frontrunner, it's clear that President Trump is going to win in a landslide in November. No candidate has ever garnered the number of votes that President Trump garnered in the New Hampshire primary, 118,774 votes, the most ever by more than 40,000 votes, the previous all-time winner being Bill Clinton in 1996 with 76,000 votes. In getting to Q Post 3858, this is what real panic looks like, my friends. What happens when 90% of the media is controlled or owned by corporations? And what happens when those same corporations are operated and controlled by a political ideology, a Rothschild, one world government, new world order ideology, I would add? What happens when the news is no longer free from bias? What happens when the news is no longer reliable and independent? What happens when the news is no longer trustworthy? What happens when the news simply becomes an extension or arm of a political party? Friends, that's why SGT Report and the alternative media exists, and that's exactly why YouTube and Google changed their algorithms in January of 2019 to try to shut us up, to try to silence us, to try to bury us, to try to make it so that we wouldn't come up in any searches on Google or YouTube. They've done an effective job, and yet we're still winning. And the problem with a centralized, corporate-controlled mainstream media is this. When does fact become fiction? Fiction become fact? When does news become propaganda? How does the average person who is under constant financial stress by design find time to research and discern fact versus fiction? When thinking about the human psyche, do people tend to follow the majority or the mainstream viewpoint in fear of being isolated or shunned? I think that has been a problem for many decades, but that spell is wearing off because, again, the Democrats and the mainstream media, their lies have become so obvious. Mainstream is used for a reason. Dominate trend in opinion. Why do mainstream media heads within different organizations always use the same keywords and or catchphrases? Friends, you and I know that the CFR gives marching orders to people like Aaron Burnett and Diane Sawyer and so many of the other CFR members who belong to news organizations controlled by corporate interests. So Q asks, coordinated by who? Outside entity providing instructions? Again, CFR. Do they count on the fact that people are more prone to believe something if heard over and over and over again by trusted sources? Do echo chamber tactics provide validations, credibility to the topic being discussed? Again, climate change, global warming. If they repeat the lie often enough, people begin to believe it's true, especially young people, especially people who don't know and understand history. Q asks, is this a threat to intellectual freedom? Would control over these institutions allow for the mass control of populations, of a population's viewpoint, logical thinking? Of course it would. Why, after the election of 2016, did Democrats and their media corporate partners jumpstart a coordinated and planned divisive blitz intended to create falsehoods about the illegitimacy of the election and character assassination of POTUS through sexism, racism, and every other ism? Pre-post 2016 election? Why were violent masked terror organizations such as Antifa immediately created and funded? And I would add funded by Soros, Move On, New World Order globalist interests? Why were these organizations tasked with immediate intimidation shutdown of any pro-POTUS rally or event? Why were marches immediately organized to counter and silence pro-POTUS rallies? Why were marches immediately organized which divided people into sex, gender, race? When you control the levels of news dissemination, you control the narrative. Control of the narrative equals power. When you're blind, what do you see? They want us divided. Divided by religion, sex, political affiliation, and class. Because when we're divided and angry and controlled, you target those different from you, not those responsible. Divided, we are weak. Divided, we pose no threat to their control, and that's what's scaring them to death. Again, look at the results in New Hampshire. President Trump, 118,774 votes. Does that sound like a divided voter bloc? When non-dogmatic information becomes free and transparent, as it has in the alternative news media, it becomes a threat to those who attempt to control the narrative and/or stable. Livestock kept? Sheep? We are sheep no more. And when you are awake, you stand on the outside of the stable and have free thought. Friends, we are no longer a part of Animal Farm. We are awake, we are sovereign, and we have self-determination. And that scares the hell out of them because they want to control us like sheep. Free thought is a philosophical viewpoint which holds that positions regarding truth should be formed on the basis of logic, reason, and empiricism rather than authority, tradition, revelation, or dogma. This represents a clear and present danger to the constitutional republic of the United States of America. And Q is talking about this centralized, corporate-controlled media. And then Q Post 3859 links to this. I give you Senator Chucky Schumer.
President is claiming that rigging the rules is perfectly legitimate. He claims an absolute right to order the Justice Department to do anything he wants. And the president has, as his attorney general, an enabler, and that's a kind word, who actually supports this view. Does anyone think it's out of the question that President Trump might order the FBI to investigate Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, or anyone else without any evidence to support such an arbitrary violation of individual rights? Oh, I know, some far-right conspiratorial writer who has no credibility and who just makes things up, writes it, Fox News puts it on, Sean Hannity or someone talks about it, and then the president says investigate.
Friends, this is what panic looks like. The crimes of Joe Biden, and especially the crimes of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, are not only legion, they're quantifiable. I know it, you know it, and Schumer knows it. They all know it, and they feared this day would come, which is why they've tried to move heaven and earth to remove this president from the White House.
That is third world behavior, not American behavior. That kind of behavior defiles that great flag that is standing above us.
To which I replied, nope, wrong. You and your friends in the Democrat Party defile that great American flag and our nation. You stand no chance in November. America is awake and justice is coming. And my friend, The Sharp Edge, retweeted this today. Listen to the panic coming from MSNBC, who posit many of the same concerns as Chuck Schumer.
That's the word I was going to use.
Would Donald Trump not do whatever he could do if he could get away with it? Seriously, if he could arrest every journalist he didn't like, if he could arrest us tomorrow, let me ask you a question. Do you think he would arrest us tomorrow? Do you think he would arrest the editor of the New York Times, the editor of the Washington Post, Jeff Bezos? Do you think he'd arrest him tomorrow and throw him in jail to silence him?
Like it.
Do you think he could? Because if you say he wouldn't, you're just lying to yourself.
And my friend Sharp Edge says, this is what panic looks like. Now, I'd like to add that Joe Scarborough, just a couple of years ago, married the woman next to him. That's Mika Brzezinski, the daughter of avowed globalist and now deceased globalist and father of the grand chessboard, Zygmunt Brzezinski. Follow the families, follow the bloodlines, Q tells us. And the Sharp Edge wrote, some in the media should be arrested for conspiring with the Obama administration to take down Trump. As for Joe, at the very least, we should look into that unsolved mystery with his intern years ago. And I wanted people to know exactly what she was talking about. And it's this. Joe's lucky he wasn't arrested for the death of 28-year-old Lori Klausutis in 2001. The lifeless intern's body was found in Joe Scarborough's office, yet her unsolved death was labeled no foul play. A real puzzler. All right, friends, I'll leave you with the good news coming out of New Hampshire. 120,000 votes cast for the incumbent, Donald John Trump. I think that stands in very stark contrast from any of the numbers coming out of New Hampshire on behalf of any of the current Democrat candidates. November 2020 is shaping up to be an absolute landslide on behalf of the Republic and the rule of law. Friends, I'll remind you, if you haven't done so already, please download the Brave browser. I'll leave a link below. It's more than 3 times faster than Google's Chrome. It won't spy on you like Google's Chrome, and it's got a built-in ad blocker. Give it a shot. Download it, try it out for 30 days, and I bet after that, you won't go back. You're going to love it. I'll leave the link below this video. And for real news 24/7, please visit us directly at sgtreport.com, the antidote to corporate propaganda 24/7. God bless. Bye-bye.
What the cabal, the deep state, has underestimated is the degree to which the constructive, positive spirit of humanity can rise up and defeat them.